listening to Pop This, the podcast where three women talk about pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen, Andrea Gin, and Andrea Warner.
So I don't know about either of your social media feeds, but mine went really crazy because The Cure put out a new album, held a concert, their first album in 16 years. I believe their first album was 1979. How do we feel about, do we need, all the reviews have been great. I'm a big Cure fan. I went to see them last year when they toured. I was ratified to see Rogers Arena completely, I had no idea, filled with a very young audience as well, like newer Cure fans. But how do we feel about this putting out new music in the later part of the career?
I kind of want, people have been sort of clamoring for this for a long time. And I will say my social media did react, but it wasn't sort of overrun with Cure fans freaking out. But it was definitely, there was a blip on the radar in my social media because I do follow a lot of music publications and stuff like that. But I always just I don't know. I love being surprised by records that keep telling the story of a band. And if they can show up in a way that feels sort of the music feels relevant and interesting today, I'm all on board with it.
Yeah, so Lisa, have you heard the new Cure album?
No, I heard one of the singles that for some reason people were obsessed with the fact that it had a 2 to 3 minute opening, which to me, that's the song. I don't know how that's an opening. Or as we call in our biz, the TTV, time to vocal. But I guess what it brings up is that if we're all music journalists here, so that idea of hearing an album and just, listening to it from its own merits. But I think so much of music for a lot of people is time and place. And for them, it's I first heard The Cure when I was this age and this was going on, as opposed to a band that sees themselves as this organic entity that's creating new things. I just feel like the music business is sort of weird that way.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, because a lot of people are listening to bands like The Cure for that feeling of nostalgia, to remember
yes,
where you were, what you were doing, taking you back to a place. And maybe the interest from the fans is maybe a little low for new music. But I think when artists do music later in their careers, it's more to satisfy themselves, because they've got
good point. Yeah.
all the resources. They probably can afford everything they couldn't afford when they're starting out to make it sound amazing, all the producers, everything. And so I feel like it's more for the artist's creative endeavor than for the fans are going to fan. They're going to just like the music that they kind of latched on to the artist in the first place for.
Well, I was just going to say 16 years is a really lengthy amount of time between records, right? And there's been a lot of, probably, I'm assuming a lot of things that have changed between folks in the band and sort of just socially and the culture. I'm thinking about when Sleater-Kinney reunited and started releasing new music together again. And just to spend time with them as artists at this point in time, after they had done other things separate from each other, they had been away, and to hear them come back together and Veruca Salt too, actually thinking about when they got back together and the Softies, yes, the Softies.
That's a great example, actually.
The Softies is a great example.
Yeah, 24 years, wasn't it, or something?
24 years, yeah. And their new record is so good and so wonderful. And I just I do love to hear how people, not how they break apart, but I love to hear how they build back together. And so there's something really, really special in that, I think.
What I love about the Softies' new album is that I feel like they have matured they have a more worldly outlook maybe in a lot of their songs and lyrics. However, it feels also musically they've picked up where they left off. And so as a fan, it's just it was so easy for me just to slide into their new music.
because they both had other bands over the years, right? And they did their own thing. They explored in different directions, and now they're coming back, and they have all that history.
And just like watching them on stage together and just like knowing how much each of them has sort of like lived and endured and like survived and thrived over the last like 24 years. Like, yeah, no, I like The Cure. I'm not like a diehard like person maybe, but like I like The Cure. And so like if those wonderful little like freaks want to give it a try again, great. Like this is what just like our sort of elder freak statesmen, we need sometimes our leaders to come back and guide us a little bit.
Lisa, do you feel like the new stuff is like the same like vibe as the old stuff, or have they gone in a new direction?
What I found interesting was that Robert Smith was interviewed and said a lot of this album is him working through some of his sadness over losing a lot of people. And, he's kind of at an age where this could start to happen, like you lose people, and I think one of the members of The Cure died last year or 2 years ago. And so he's exploring that. But as a bit of a tangent, it's interesting to think when last year, 2 big concerts I saw, one was The Cure, one was New Order and Pet Shop Boys. And the Pet Shop Boys have a song from 92, I think. It's my favorite Pet Shop Boys song called Being Boring. I don't know if you know it. Chorus of it's a song about being young and crazy and doing whatever you want. And the chorus is, we were never being boring. We had too much time to spend on ourselves. And it's beautiful. But then the end of the song, the last verse, is about the song is for all the friends they lost from AIDS. Because they were a big techno band in the 80s. And so that song to a lot of people is really important, because they lived through that with them. And I just think it's interesting to think of a band like now the Pet Shop Boys are on the other side of that. And now Robert Smith is dealing with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I talked about going to the Weezer concert, the Blue Planet tour.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I was just like, I love the Blue album. And that's why I went to this anniversary show. But like their career has been like, for me as a fan, like loved it. Don't like, hate, don't like. And then after going to the concert, I listened to their more recent stuff. And I was like, oh, they have kind of, for me, rounded the corner from like really bad and so bad. And now they're back in the good part again in like 2018. They've returned to make the connection between their early album and skipped over like 15 years and connected it with like this stage of their career. And that makes me happy.
Wow. Yeah.
So
it's a nice thing to sort of spend time with like music that you loved at a very specific point, and then like to revisit it again in a different state of mind and in a different place. And like, I don't know, I think it also gives us a chance to sort of like let this, I mean, it's kind of like a cliched phrase, but like meeting us where we're at, like the music can come back, meet us where we're at now. We each meet each other together and like see if we still vibe. It's like being reunited with an old friend.
Yeah. Agreed.
I've been commenting to people the last couple of weeks that like the good thing about being 45 now is that all the bands I liked when I was 25 were on their 20th anniversary reunion tours.
Yeah, I just went and saw Stars last week. So yeah. Exactly.
I know, I was there.
Yeah. Oh, right. Okay, there you go. Yeah, 20. Yeah. Wow, what? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was really sad to miss the Stars show. I couldn't go to it, but then they announced that they're going to do another same Set Yourself on Fire anniversary show, and they're going to come back to Vancouver and do the Commodore next year.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, Commodore is always and the Vogue was just very lovely, but the Commodore, I think, is gold standard. Yes.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. I'm Andrea Warner.
I'm Lisa Christiansen.
I'm Andrea Gin.
I'm Carlos Hernandez Fisher.
Yay! Carlos is back and joining us, and you're listening to Pop This. Thank you, Carlos, for hanging out with us tonight. We're excited to have you.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
And Carlos is Andrea Warner's partner in crime. In case anyone,
It's true.
You talk about Carlos like on all the podcasts, so most people probably know who he is, but just in case.
But you know what? It's so funny when we are out in public and someone comes up to me who I don't really know and they tell me who they are or whatever. And then I go to introduce Carlos and they're like, "You're Carlos." Because
From
like they know
Instagram.
him from Instagram.
You're a folk hero, Carlos.
It's definitely not from my Instagram because
No, your
posted
Instagram
once
is
a
a
year.
naked wasteland of just food pictures and birds.
I was going to say I posted like 10
I thought you
photos
were
of
going in
ducks
a
last
different
month.
direction with naked
No,
wasteland.
not
Yeah,
sorry,
so
not
did
like
I,
an
yeah.
actual naked wasteland. Can you
Yeah.
imagine? No, according to Carlos's Instagram, he is only interested in birds and food. He has no wife. He has no people in his life. It's just.
I think that's fine. I love Carlos's Instagram.
I know you do, and I'm not poo-pooing it. I think it's very funny. I just like mine is just like nothing but like faces everywhere, and his is like beaks, little beak freak.
Lisa, I watched the show you recommended a couple weeks ago. Nobody Wants This. And one of the most memorable lines was them talking about Instagram and how one of their friends didn't have Instagram. And they're like, how will anyone know if she goes on vacation?
How does she
Good
even
point, see?
exist? Oh my
Yeah.
God.
I know.
So we are talking about Agatha all along, but I will also do Carlos's bio quickly before we sort of dig into it, since we've just been talking about him. So obviously notorious beak freak, but also Carlos Hernandez Fisher is a pop culture omnivore, loves to cook and read, and is a former Jeopardy contestant. He works in technology and has a background in publishing and design. Carlos discovered his love of comics when he bought Marvel Treasury Edition #1 from a flea market. His favorite Marvel character is Nightcrawler. Yay! You know what? I learned something about my spouse
to
in
know.
that I had no idea. His
okay.
favorite character was Nightcrawler.
I mean, I've definitely told you that, but fair.
In one ear, out the other. I'm a terrible, terrible spouse.
Carlos is our resident Marvel expert. Discuss this TV series.
Yeah, I was telling Andrea I don't want it to turn into just me explains Marvel.
Well, we're going to need an explanation.
Carlos
for some
explains
things.
Marvel to women.
Even though it's all about women.
No, I think it's like I mean I would never worry about us letting a man talk over us. I'm not worried about that at all. Can you imagine this
Not anymore.
podcast about 3 women talking and then we
Yeah.
invite a guy and like just he lays waste to us in our space? No.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
This is the beginning of Carlos's TED Talk about Marvel.
Yeah, I mean at least TED Talks are like short though. I do think like the explanation that he gave to me before we started Agatha all along was quite helpful. So I appreciate it for its
that
context.
actually.
Yeah, I realized after the fact that I should have offered that to
just
both
like-
of you.
So
Did any of you watch WandaVision?
no.
No.
Yeah, I love WandaVision. I watched all of it. I loved it. So I did.
Yep.
I had frame reference for Catherine Hahn and who she's playing, but I'm still confused. So
Okay, well, I mean, at least you had something.
Mhm.
All right, let's dig into it. Agatha all along. Lisa, do you want to read the background?
Sure. Agatha All Along is an American television miniseries created by Jack Schaefer for the streaming service Disney Plus, based on Marvel Comics, featuring the character Agatha Harkness, a spin-off from the series WandaVision from 2021. It is the 11th television series in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Catherine Hahn reprises her role as Agatha Harkness from WandaVision with Joe Locke, Deborah Jo Rupp, Audrey Plaza, Sashir Zamata, Ali An, and Patti LuPone.
Thank you so much. AG, do you want to do the synopsis?
Sure. 3 years after being trapped under a magical spell in the town of Westview, New Jersey, at the end of the miniseries WandaVision, the witch Agatha Harkness escapes with the help of a goth teen who wishes to face the trials of the legendary Witch's Road. Without her magical powers, Agatha and the teen form a new coven of witches to face the trials while contending with some of Agatha's old enemies, such as the Salem 7. So I thought this was like a whole standalone, a brand new thing. And so
That's not how Marvel rolls. Nothing is standalone.
I don't even know if I understood that it was a Marvel thing, except like until I started watching it, and then I continued watching the series because I just was trying to figure it out. And towards the end, I read like a background of it. I was like, "Oh, this is connected to other stuff."
How far did you make it, AG?
I watched the entire thing, and I was just like,
"Oh wow,
I'm so confused. What is happening? Why is this? Were we told anything about this? Like, why is that?" Yeah.
Why is that? Wow.
Yeah.
The Agatha Harkness question. Why is that?
Yeah, well, I made it
I love
to episode 4 and then just gave up. But I just want to say that I loved WandaVision. I every single episode I thought was fantastic. And this, I fell into that same trap of those two words that I like to use together that don't really belong together, but bored and confused. So that's my assessment. Bored and confused.
So in this episode, and this episode specifically, we're kind of usually keeping it to like episodes 1 and 2. But given the fact that 3 of us have watched all of it, and Lisa, you've watched up to episode 4, we can maybe like relax about that a little tiny bit. I don't want to spoil the show for you, Lisa, though. Like in case you
I'm not
do
going
end up
back.
deciding
Go
that you
ahead.
want to finish it.
Nope.
You're not going back.
Not
You're
going
done.
back. I'm
Okay.
done. Yeah.
Should we go full spoilers then?
Go ahead.
Yeah, we can go full spoilers then if we want. Did you actually watch episode 4, or did you just make it up to episode 4?
I think I'm about like halfway through episode 4.
Okay, so you haven't seen like the full rock version of the song.
Oh, they play that song so much.
Yeah,
I love that song.
But they're in their 70s garb walking around the house. I haven't heard the song done yet. They're just walked into the studio.
They're gonna play like okay, they're gonna play like the full, and it's quite an epic like face melting kind of rendition.
I
of
love
the
the song the first like 2 times I heard it, and then
you were like, no.
And then after they kept playing it over and over and over again, it just I kept thinking like I'm trying to figure out why it was called Agatha all along, and I spent a lot of time while listening to their music numbers trying to figure that out. Like I'm not a person who Googles things, obviously, because I would just as like not a non-modern person just watched the show without the aid of a phone or computer.
So let me ask, have you heard the song Agatha All Along?
No.
So that's from WandaVision. So we'll spoil WandaVision too, I guess. The big twist of WandaVision is that Agatha was the villain all along. And there's like a big reveal in the last episode, second to last episode.
I see. Okay.
With a big musical number of how she's been behind everything all along.
Oh, okay. Well, look at that. Another piece of the puzzle falling into place.
They turned it into like part of the marketing for the show, I think. They announced like 4 different titles. Like as it was being produced, it was like Agatha Coven of Chaos and Agatha the House of Harkness. And
I see.
it seemed to keep changing titles every 6 months until they announced that it was actually Agatha all along.
I see. Okay. Well, that makes sense. Thank you.
So I had only watched 1 episode of WandaVision, and then I kind of tapped out. So I didn't have like much context, except that Carlos told me about like how Agatha, it turned out, had been like the villain of WandaVision and had like created this basically like this sort of spell universe or whatever. And then he was like, okay, and then she had all her powers taken away from her. And I was like, oh, okay. So like I'm not gonna get a standalone cool series that's like a podcast true crime investigation series. This first episode is a lie. And yes, that was like, so
boy, was I disappointed.
I was a little sad
too.
that we weren't getting like witches investigating crimes. Like I really thought that.
I know.
And Aubrey Plaza's whole thing was working for me, and the way she saunters in, and I thought, oh, great, because I loved all that stuff in WandaVision, but no. No.
Okay, so Carlos, can you like kind of just briefly like tell us the things that it would have been good to know to understand sort of like what the concept of like Agatha all along sort of like is playing with here?
All right, so how far back do I go? In the 60s, Agatha Harkness was the nanny for the Fantastic Four.
No. You are not allowed to take us back to the 60s.
So WandaVision is like after the Avengers, Vision, the robot husband of Scarlet Witch, is dead. In her grief, Scarlet Witch, she's the one that like creates the illusion and like traps everybody in Westview.
Westview.
And like the whole show of WandaVision is like, the conceit of it is each episode is a different decade of television history. They're showing like the episode that's like the I Love Lucy episode, the Brady Bunch episode, the like Full House episode, and it's all like the fictional world that the Scarlet Witch has created. And that twist at the end is that like Agatha has been there all along, like the show says, and has been like watching the Scarlet Witch because she knows that she's powerful, and it ends with like a big fight between them. Scarlet Witch flies off, and the Scarlet Witch like leaves Agatha trapped in her like nosy neighbor TV show persona, and that's sort of like where it picks up at the beginning of Agatha all along.
But like Agatha's whole thing is she eats other witches' powers?
Yeah, so in the show her like background is that she's like from Salem witch times, that she had a coven with her mother and her like other witches and took all their powers and killed them all. And that's about as much as we know coming into it. That's what we saw in WandaVision. We find out more as we see in like Agatha all along, sort of more of the history of what's been going on.
But like people were writing up this show saying that it was kind of effective as a standalone and stuff like that. And like on some level for me it is, but like it's not as effective as a standalone as like Ms. Marvel or even She-Hulk Attorney at Law. Like I mean those, I feel like they're doing a lot to try and like keep secrets a lot, and it's like kind of unnecessarily complicated. Like
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like once I discovered this wasn't a standalone and I could unlock some of my questions by Googling, I was like, but that's so much work. I don't want to read about all this stuff. I don't want to do all this like research. I just want to watch a show that makes sense about witches.
Well, that's not this show. That is not this show. I wanted that kid's little black book and to read through there and figure out things too. Like, what are you talking about? Why? Yeah, it was so confusing.
Should we just tell Lisa like all the twists that we learn about the different people?
Well, kind of a little bit, like because you said you're not going to finish it, and so like if anybody else is like not wanting spoilers, then like maybe just bow out now and then come back to us in a little bit. But episode 4 for me is sort of where it becomes, I think, a more cohesive show, and like I'm appreciating the different things that it's sort of nodding to, like Real Housewives and like Wizard of Oz and like these different sort of like tropes and stereotypes and caricatures and like famous sort of like witches, you know, kind of thing. Like I and each witch gets like her own episode, which is kind of fun. Like especially like Patti LuPone's episode and
yeah, that one was cool.
Like
actually,
yeah, like there's a lot happening, but like it gets extra complicated and weird when it turns out the teen is the basically like reincarnated, not really reincarnated, but the spirit of one of the Scarlet Witch's children.
Yeah, keep going. You're on the right track.
Body, and that's why he's just like the teen, and no one can see who he is because he actually has like a ton of power from being the child of the Scarlet Witch.
But when they ask him his name, you can't hear him say it. Is that why?
Yeah,
yeah, okay.
Because it's been like cursed.
Yeah. So is the teen in his like real life original personage? Did he die in that car crash?
Yeah. So like the teen that's the child of those two people is dead, and like William is in his body.
Yeah, there's Billy Kaplan, the teen from Eastview that died in the accident.
But how did he get into that body?
Because that was at the exact same moment that in the fight between Agatha and the Scarlet Witch, the like hex over the town was destroyed, and the Scarlet Witch's children were not real. They were like manifested by the Scarlet Witch out of nothing. And when they disappeared with the rest of the hex, the shard of his soul went into Billy Kaplan's body.
Right. Yeah.
But so he
was a makeup, right? He was a make-him-up magic boy who was who was destroyed by a witch, and the soul went into the dying body of a teenager.
And then he manifested everything that happened on the road?
We do find that that's the like big
Yeah.
twist in the very last episode is that actually the Witch's Road has never been real. Agatha made that up way back in olden days as like a scam on other witches so she could kill them. And that
And take their
Billy's
powers.
power is what actually like made the Witch's Road of the show. And he like, manifested that.
But
they
he
call it, like,
didn't
the Kaiser's
realize
Oath.
that until it all was over?
Oh, and then Aubrey Plaza's character is Death. FYI, too.
Yeah, it took me
Meaning
a
what?
while
What meaning? What does that mean?
understand that. Yeah.
The personification of the concept of death in the Marvel universe.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
Like she's who comes and collects people when they die.
But she's also Agatha's ex. And they do get to have, like, a pretty good kiss. Finally.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of Sam and Diane there, isn't there? Yeah.
Yeah, real dancing around stuff for like a long time. But it's a bit creepy though too. It did, I thought, like effectively for me, remind me of like a sort of like horribly abusive relationship in that Death is like obsessed with Agatha and is doing some really heinous things. And Agatha is sort of just begging to be left alone. There's sort of a lot of like ugly levels at work there.
I don't think
Which,
it's
again,
explained very well in the show. I got the feeling that she was obsessed because William Maximoff, had escaped death and was like back alive and shouldn't be. And that had thrown off the balance and that's what she was after.
Huh.
But there was also like the whole thing about how she like took the child and like she gave that extra time with the child and then she came to claim the child and like she was going to continue to taunt her with like a dead son. That's the other thing I'd like to talk about with Marvel Universe stuff is like, why does the Marvel Universe think that the only real storyline that ever can be told pertaining to its women characters is about motherhood or the absence of motherhood? Like, what is that obsession with the Marvel Universe?
Well, Disney is the same way.
And like making everything.
Disney kills off every mom. Like that's one of their hallmarks as well.
But like sometimes their characters are allowed to want to do more things than become a mother or not become a mother or be tortured by the fact that like Marvel, like if you think about like the Russian, well, Scarlet Witch,
Black
but like
Widow.
then Scarlett Johansson's character, just like,
I mean, I've always chalked that up to a Joss Whedon thing. He's the one that wrote that in, but in one of the Avengers movies that he directed, he had the line from Scarlett Johansson from Black Widow about how she can't have children and that's what makes her the real monster when she's talking to the Hulk.
Oh,
Which has always been like real gross.
yeah, it's super gross. No, and and it makes sense if it's a Joss Whedon leftover thing, but like,
that's a Joss
how
Whedon thing.
dare
but I
that
do think
infect
it's, like,
the
echoed into
entire
the rest of the series.
But like, how dare that infect the entire Marvel universe? Like, that's like that. I mean, it might be one of the reasons I'm so refreshed by Ms. Marvel.
Mother story.
No, because she's a teenager, so she's still allowed to just have different hopes and dreams yet, because they aren't going to encourage like underage pregnancy. But like, wait till she's 24.
Yeah, or I was trying to think of like her own mother, like what the story was with that.
I mean, she's a supportive mom, but she's like freaked out. Like, it's it's a nice one. It's sort of reasonably fine. I just all of this
But
like
it's something that's always been like deep in the bones of like the Scarlet Witch's character, especially like her whole thing around her children goes back to the 80s in the comics. Like the fact that she and the Vision, the android, were married and had these magical children was then used 20 years later when they revealed the children to be like shards of the devil essentially and they disappeared, that the Scarlet Witch goes crazy and like kills half the Avengers because of it. And it was that's always been kind of ugly.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
I don't know what I thought WandaVision was about, but it wasn't that.
No.
And that's the thing is like WandaVision cleans it up maybe a little bit and there's no like deal with the devil. It's just her trying to like manifest this happy life with the Vision and a happy family.
Mm-hmm.
But then she loses it and it gets destroyed. And that's what, I'm sure nobody here has seen Doctor Strange, the last Doctor Strange movie. That's what leads to like her being like Wanda, the villain of Doctor Strange, is because she's hopping around in different dimensions looking for her children that were taken from her.
Gosh. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta say, like, so the headline of this Vox piece, Agatha All Along, is a Marvel show you don't have to do homework for.
Disagree. Strongly disagree.
And I'm just reading from the excerpt. Viewers require very little background knowledge to understand the show. That's given the series a serendipitous storytelling cushion, allowing everyone involved a bit more creative slack to show us how the most maniacal 400-year-old witch to ever haunt the planet got her groove back. It's a journey that takes us to a spoof of Mayor of Easttown, an uncanny play on Bravo's Real Housewives, a winking riff on The Wizard of Oz, and so many weird places in between.
And I think that's true if you look at the first few episodes. If you know that, like, Agatha was a witch, she was trapped in this town and had her powers taken away, and now she's, like, getting them back, and she wants to go on this, like, journey on the witch's road with her coven. That's mostly what you need to know for those first few episodes. The back half of the season gets into some, like, pretty deep, gnarly Marvel Universe shenanigans with, like, Scarlet Witch's kids and Billy Maximoff and Death and all that kind of stuff.
Can I just say, to surprise everybody, that I did watch all the episodes of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I know you're going to
Really?
go, what? Yeah.
What's that?
Really?
I think that's the only one that Andrea's watched.
No, I've watched The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I did
And
stick
some
it out because I
Loki.
like
I saw some
Anthony
Loki,
Mackie.
too.
But I watched some Hawkeye. I watched Ms. Marvel. I watched She-Hulk, Attorney at Law.
Oh, that's right. We watched She-Hulk.
I did not watch She-Hulk.
It was fun.
But we watched I remember we did the Ms. Marvel.
Yeah.
Hawkeye, you're not going to get me to watch because I don't think that's not interesting. He flies around on those wings, right? That's Hawkeye? No. Or is Hawkeye the guy with the bow and arrow?
Arrow.
Boring.
Yeah.
So boring. No?
Yeah, pretty boring.
I mean, I'm probably the only person here that watched the Hawkeye show. It was fine. It was not great, but it was not bad. It was not the worst of these Marvel TV shows. And the, like, best parts of it is it has Florence Pugh coming back as, like, her Black Widow character, and it has Haley Steinfeld as, like, the younger Hawkeye character.
Right.
But it has the same problem that 9 out of 10 of these Marvel shows, where it has, like, an interesting-ish story leading up to a final episode where it's just a bunch of, like, you know, powers and fighting, and doesn't really conclude with anything except a teaser for the next show. That was my problem with WandaVision. I thought WandaVision was really great up until the last episode, where it was like Wanda and Agatha throwing red and purple light at each other, and then Scarlet Witch flies off.
Okay, can we talk a little bit about Catherine Hahn's performance, though? Because I really do think that the performances here are, for the most part, excellent, even if some of the character stuff needs some work. Like, no matter what they ask Catherine Hahn to do, and they ask her to do a lot of just absolutely bonkers stuff. She shows up in every single scene to, like, the fullest of her powers.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, she seems, I guess she is playing a bunch of different characters. And so that's impressive from that point of view, is like seeing her range from the start to finish of this series. I mean, I guess that's like what first interested me in watching it in the first place, is that she was the star of it. I think it is her, like, being able to just put her acting chops on full display, because she gets a lot to do.
Yeah, I just want to also note, though, that this episode 4 with this crazy 70s band thing, why did they give Patti LuPone that wig? Like, what was going on? Everyone looked a bit, like, kind of cool and sexy, and they put Patti LuPone in that Liza Minnelli wig. Like, did all the other wigs were taken? Like, what happened?
Yeah, it was a free-for-all on wig day. And Patty's slowest. She just got there last.
Yeah, just take it out till episode 6,
Yeah.
where they put her in a Glinda wig.
That's true.
Okay, yeah.
That's true. I mean, and I guess I also, like, I have some favorite side characters too, because there is so much that I love about seeing Patti LuPone in this show, in this universe. Like, you know that she has never watched a Marvel thing in her whole life. So she is just showing up for her paycheck, but she's also showing up because she gets to work with all these amazing women and this, like, teen. Joe Locke is pretty good in this. But, like, I've watched some footage of, like, all of the women coming together on the carpet to, like, as they're differently being interviewed, and Patti LuPone doing press for this show and, like, showing up and, like, hanging out with Sashir Zameda and Nicole Byer and, like, just just watching her and Aubrey Plaza together, like there's so much to delight. Like even like this is the problem that I have, I think, as a fan of a lot of the actors of this show, is I am extremely predisposed to liking it, but I'm so in love with all of the press junkety stuff that they're doing around it. It might make me like the show even more, and that I am an unreliable critic in this because I love all of these people so much.
No, I love them all too. But when you say Patti LuPone, I'm like, what? Like, I'm in. Like, I want to know. I need to know.
Well, I mean, Lisa, you could go and just like watch her character's episode because it's
her character standalone episode.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that because what was that episode? There was even an episode of Girls where he got to meet Patti LuPone, and it was like the biggest deal in the world. I mean, I love the way she is great, but I also love putting her in something as like a really cool pop culture thing to do.
Yeah. And just like, I've never really seen Ali On in a lot of stuff before. Like, and I thought she was really like kind of a revelation. Like I thought she gets to be so cool in episode 4, if I'm like remembering things correctly. And I've never seen Sashir Zameda like this before either. Like she's doing some extremely, extremely difficult and tender work at different places in time. And even just like the fact that like as an actor, her coming out story became part of the press cycle for this show. Like and the show was already being labeled as like Marvel's quote gayest show ever. And like whether or not that's true or not, it's a different conversation, I suppose. But
well, when you never, ever, ever do it, and then you do something.
Yeah, I think it's true by default, but it's a very low bar.
Very low bar.
The previous biggest gay character was like the person in the like grief counseling episode, played by like the director of the Avengers.
Fair enough.
But I also feel like Ali On is having a moment because she's in The Diplomat as well. I don't know if any of you have watched
I haven't watched it.
It's so good. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And she plays a real badass in that series, so I highly recommend it.
Nice. I'm now prepared to follow her into anything, so I guess I'm gonna watch The Diplomat.
It's worth it.
I've heard good
okay.
things.
Oh,
Carrie
I
Russell
want
is
to.
always great.
I've heard good things too. Yeah.
All right. Cool.
And that's Rufus Sewell, isn't it? As well, her husband.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he has to redeem himself from the holiday every year, right? So
I literally
he plays a smarmy character on The Diplomat, so it's
honestly good.
There
That's
we go.
like
Just like Jasper. There we go.
He knows what he's playing and he knows how to do it, and it's great. And I'm thrilled for him that that's his future and his present and his past. Do you remember when? Oh God, no, I'm not even going to say. Do you remember when I remember like when we revisited Ever After and realized that he was the prince in Ever After, and like, we were all like, oh yeah, Jasper. And like, then I was just putting together, I was putting together some suggestions for like our remaining episodes for the rest of the year and adding in Love Actually versus The Holiday part like 7,000. And just thinking, oh God, we got to spend time with Jasper.
Yeah, we sure do.
Yeah, well, you're not going to like his character in The Diplomat, but
No,
you're designed
fair
not
enough.
to like his character. So,
all right, that's fair.
Okay.
That's fair.
I feel that's better. Yeah.
Lisa, did you have any side characters or secondary characters that you were enjoying in the couple episodes that you watched?
Well, I'll tell you, for me, the whole series went downhill after we weren't like solving some sort of Danish murder or whatever that was at the beginning.
Fair enough.
Also, yes, there was one character, and I had to look him up because I thought it was Ross from Friends. But that actor is not Ross. Do you know who I'm talking about?
The guy that plays like the police captain in
it's not David Schwimmer.
Murder episode?
Yeah.
No.
He looked... I was like, I thought I would have heard David Schwimmer was in this movie or in this series. Not that I have like an alert or something. David Schwimmer is doing.
It sounds
something.
like you do, though.
Yeah, it does. Maybe I do. I'm the one person on the planet, I think, that says the character I love the most on Friends was Ross. So that's true. I'm just saying that now, and I'm sure I've said it before.
But it's very funny to me that like in a whole show that's like really about like a lot of women, witches, a coven, Lisa's like, yeah, it's the David
background
Schwimmer
guy.
mustache that's like she could not check out of this show harder than the only memorable character for her is David Schwimmer mustache cop.
Okay.
Incredible.
I also always enjoy, and I will just always know her as Kitty from that 70s show. But she was also, oh my God, she was on Friends.
Deborah Jo Rupp.
Deborah Jo Rupp, yeah.
Remember when she was on Friends? She was like the mother of the teacher that Phoebe's brother had the affair with.
Yeah, she's the one that marries Giovanni Ribisi. Like,
yeah, and then Phoebe gives birth to their triplets. Yeah, triplets.
Yes. Triplets. It's it was nice to see Deborah Jo Rupp again. I will say, like I like her, and that's like one of the things that I just feel like the casting is so good. I liked the show, but I wish the show had been like 20% better and more able to reach an audience that doesn't require all of this heavy lifting of WandaVision to like enjoy, you know?
Agreed.
But then maybe there was enough people out there that are happy. Carlos, are you happy with this show?
I am. I still consider it like in one of the better Marvel TV shows. Like Marvel's been in a bad way the last few years, like ever since their like peak with the Avengers like Endgame stuff. They've had some rough times and some bad movies, but some of their TV shows have been good, but they mostly have not been good, and I think this is one of the better ones. But I'm also coming into it as somebody who has seen every minute of the Marvel like cinematic universe pretty much, except for Echo.
Okay, but you're still
the one I skipped.
Your assessment is based on Marvel. But as in, do you think this is an enjoyable show if you didn't have the Marvel knowledge?
I think that it gets a little twisty towards the end of the run. Like I don't agree with like that article we were quoting that says it's the show that you don't need to know anything else. I think it has enough going for it that it can stand on its own, and it has some effective like emotional beats. It has some amazing performances, some good storytelling, but I think you're going to get lost in the sauce towards the end when it starts bringing in all the like mythology that you need to know. And as it starts like setting up what's going to be next, like the Vision show and wherever they're taking Billy's teen into his next stuff, and the like, you know, when you know what's going on and you know that he's going to be in Young Avengers eventually, like I can't divorce myself from that because I know that that's all part of it.
I don't know.
But that's, I think that's the disservice it does though to Agatha all along, because it like, even just as you're describing it there, it's tissue and sinew. It's a connection. It's not a standalone thing on its own. And I think WandaVision kind of got to be its own thing, and Ms. Marvel on a lot of levels got to be its own thing. And I just feel like they were using Agatha all along as that bridge between WandaVision and then the Vision show. I think
Ms. Marvel did. It's, I think, the exception more than the rule. I think that because it was new characters, it was a new corner of the universe that we haven't seen, that got to stand on its own. But even that like was a leaping off point for the Marvels and what they did with Kamala Khan in the movies, and itself like is going to lead down the road probably to like Young Avengers stuff with young Hawkeye and Billy and all them. I think it's also maybe just something that like my experience like reading comics my whole life. Comics have been running since the 60s and it's all one story. You're used to picking up an issue and reading it, and you can know that there might be background and stories that happen that affect this, but you can sort of put together what's going on without needing to know that. And you know that if you want to go back and, you know, connect the pieces, you can.
Yeah, I feel like as someone who never read comics or doesn't have any Marvel knowledge at all, it was just like confusing to slowly realize that the like teen was the main character of the story-ish, like towards the end. And at the end, even where they left it at the end of the like the final episode, I was just like, what happens now? Where are they going? What are they doing? Who, like,
I mean, I think it's the way it's always compared to a soap opera. Like, I know I've never was a soap opera watcher, but I'm sure that if you jump in and start watching Young and the Restless for the first time, you can follow it plot to plot, day to day, but you know that there's pieces that you're missing because you don't know the backstory of all the characters.
Yeah, you need to know 40 years of history
as you go. That's what reading comics is like. You know that there's something there that you don't quite understand, but you can pick it up in context.
Well, it is really important to understand that Victor Newman once imprisoned a man in his cell, in his basement, and they'd never bring that up. But that's important backstory to understand Victor Newman.
Yeah, just like it's important to know that Scarlet Witch and the Vision's children were actually shards of Mephisto created by Master Pandemonium and then were destroyed and Avengers disassembled.
See, I'm gonna make an audio clip of what you just said and suggest that they play it at the beginning of Agatha All Along for everybody to hear, because that would be helpful.
What was nice, and I think we should give like just a bit more space to, is like the teen Joe Luck's performance and the teen storyline and the teen and his boyfriend getting to be like really sweet together. And so I guess on a lot of levels, maybe this is the sort of, you know, coolest and gayest Marvel show yet. But like, I really liked that his storyline was, you know, he is a out queer teen who is like, gets to have his love story as well as all these other things that he wants, and, you know, sort of figuring out his powers and who he is. And then, you know, I'm not mad at like the future of this perhaps being like him on a quest for his twin, who like is in somebody else's body apparently, probably, or maybe is just a chair. I don't know. It seems like you can just sort of inhabit anything. I have no idea.
Are you going to be disappointed when in the Young Avengers show they ditch that boyfriend so that they can put him together with Hulkling like they do in the comics?
Is Hulkling what's a Hulkling?
That is Billy's boyfriend in Young Avengers.
Oh, okay. I am sad then because I really like that boyfriend.
Yeah.
So much
Okay,
sadness.
well,
Okay.
we reached the end of our Witch's Road.
Yes.
We have. And it has been all a lie. The entire episode has been an absolute manifestation and a fever dream.
In fact, Carlos has been the host all alone of Pop This for the past 10 years.
Wow.
Pop This has never existed except in Carlos's mind, and he has done our voices. I am a creation of his entirely. You know, fun. What a twist. Just manifested the whole thing. Yeah. We are the snow globe, guys.
Mm-hmm. Always thought that.
So do we think that this show pops?
No, we do not.
It does for me. There's a lot that I really like about it. And I'm actually like compelled to go back and rewatch parts of it because I want to try and make sense of it more so now that I have a broader understanding.
And yeah, maybe I'm grading it on a curve and saying that it pops as like very good Marvel content, but I think it's on its own merits as well as a standalone thing. I think it pops as well.
I think it's a half pop, maybe more if you're willing to do hard labor to get there.
which is what everyone wants to do with their entertainment.
I love to do just a thesis's worth of research.
You're willing to sit in a darkened room, Googling stuff for like maybe at least 2 days, and reading, then maybe it will be more than a half pop for you.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Fair.
Maybe. No promises.
No promises.
We also love to end our episodes on things people recommend. So, Lisa, what's your hearty recommendation?
Well, you know what it's going to be, and we discussed perhaps doing it as an episode, but the documentary Martha, about Martha Stewart on Netflix is really fascinating. I mean, I don't think that's a big surprise for anyone, but it is just to see her story, just to hear her assessments of everything has been amazing. I don't want to give anything away, although I just want to say this one line where she is complaining that her husband, Andy, was having affairs. And then the filmmaker, who's having quite an interesting conversation with her throughout the film, asks her, well, but didn't you say you had an affair? And she's, well, yeah, but he didn't know anything about that. And the guy goes, no, I'm pretty sure he did. And she goes, oh, well, anyway, it was just some handsome Irish man. So it was like a big deal. Nothing to lose a marriage over. So I love the world of Martha Stewart. It's a very interesting place. And it was good. There you go. It was good.
Awesome. Thank you. I am fascinated to watch this documentary. Mm-hmm. I think it'll be something.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
AG, what about you?
So I want to recommend the kind of like OG witch film that I saw recently at the Cinematheque, and it's no longer playing at the Cinematheque, but it's I think available online to watch. But it's like a silent horror documentary / narrative about like the history of witches.
Oh.
And just let me read you the description. One of the earliest depictions of witches in the history of cinema, Benjamin Christiansen's silent era masterpiece was in fact an attempt to demystify superstitions by rooting them in mental illness. And so basically kind of shows you how like women, the way they depict like witches through history are like women suffering from various mental illnesses were accused of being witches. Yeah, and the Cinematheque did this amazing thing where they brought in some musicians who played like an improvised soundtrack to the movie, and it was fantastic. But I think it's referenced. There was one of the few references in Agatha all along that I got because there was like a poster in Teen's room of Haxan, and then like the credits are sort of like echoes of Haxan because it's like, you know, women who are witches through history.
Yeah.
And so I think if you want like a basis of witches through history, Haxan is like the core movie that you need to watch.
Nice. Thank
you.
Also,
quick to note, no relation to me, that Christiansen. Spells the name
you don't know,
and everything.
Maybe.
Well, maybe. Okay. Yeah.
Carlos, as our guest, what would you like to recommend?
Yeah, we're talking about how I'm in my beak freak era earlier, unless that was before we were recording. I don't remember. I'm going to recommend the 2 apps I use when I'm out looking for birds. One of them is Merlin Bird ID. That's the app that you can have it record the sound that you hear, like of birds singing around you, or take a photo of a bird and upload it, and it'll tell you what the bird is. And then the other one is eBird, and that's where you can track, like if you go out on a birding hike or something, it lets you track what birds you've seen, and it'll share it with parts of the eBird community, and that's how people keep track of like where there's sightings of different birds, what the like bird populations are like. And you can sort of like see where a good spot of like when we travel, if I want to find out where to go see the birds, I can see where the hotspots for birding are. eBird and Merlin Bird ID.
Are these free apps or do you have to pay for them?
Yep, they're free.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's almost like they almost consider like a volunteer service that they want people reporting where they see different birds so they can have a track of what the like health of the bird populations in different areas are.
Cool.
Fantastic. Wow.
This is a real delight for me to witness Carlos moving into this era. I really like, you know, watching? Of all the different eras. Yeah, truly. Like of all the different eras that like one's partner could move into in middle age, your beak freak era is one of the best.
Love it.
It's like you're have your own Taylor Swift show going on.
Honestly, and he's like kind of getting our nephew into it, and so like our nephew will send him pictures of like birds he sees out in the. Anyway, it's really cute. I love it. Well, thank you, Carlos, and I am going to recommend Elsbeth season 2. Our favorite quirky lawyer investigator person is back. I love Carrie Preston. I really love the show. It's very fun. I love sort of like standalone sort of week to week murder things that are sort of like Matlock meets Columbo, and they have just a fantastic array of guest stars. They kick off season 2 with Nathan Lane, and it's glorious. Yeah, they've sort of softened some of the like edges that didn't work as well last season, and I think I'm very excited about season 2 so far.
Fabulous. And she's a
And you
spin-off
don't
from
need
The
to
Good
have-
Wife, right?
Yeah, you don't
Yeah.
need to have watched The Good Wife or the other one. You can just go in cold on Elsbeth. There's a couple of references here and there sometimes, but it doesn't detract from the actual enjoyment of the show.
Fantastic. I love that.
Yeah.
Mhm. More than ever.
Carlos, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you
Thank you, Carlos.
not mansplaining Agatha all along to us, but just, sharing your knowledge with us.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was a lot of fun.
Do you want people to find you online?
Yeah, you can go to my Instagram at Hernandez Fisher. See my photos of birds and food.
Just
I highly
Fantastic.
recommend it.
Yeah.
Yeah, AG's favorite follow. You can follow us online if you like. We are on all the different channels and all have different names. So just good luck to you if you can find us. But if you'd like to email us, you could email us at popthiscollective@gmail.com. You would think 10 years in, we'd make it easier for you. But no, we want to earn every like that finds us. And also I just realized it, but tonight when we're recording is very close to, if not exactly, our official 10th anniversary.
Wow.
Friends. I know we've been celebrating all year. I get that, but I just want to say it's official, like this week or next, somewhere, whenever this is coming out, is because we started in November of 2015.
Wow. Wow. I can't believe
so
it.
Crazy. No.
Yeah.
that
Here we are.
We did it.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we
Congrats.
did it. This is it.
Boy, I feel like singing some Celine Dion here or something now. Just, or just admitting.
Why don't I work on the rights for that, and then we'll come back to you.
Yeah, thank you. Or I could go also with "You Are the Wind Beneath My Wings," just to go with the bird thing. But
We don't need to get sued at this point in our
Okay, fine.
podcast trajectory.
We've gone this far, yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks everyone for being here. Thank you. Oh, 10 years. Holy cow. And Carlos, thank you. And Andrea Gin, our co-host and producer. And I'd say your journey is, wow, you did not start off as a co-host here. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like Teen's journey in Agatha all along.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Turns out
Yeah.
AG was the star all along. Honestly,
Nobody
no problem with that at all.
guessed it.
No
Nobody
surprise.
would've
Just trying to wheedle her way in, finally. There you go.
It makes me so happy. All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.